Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline Podcast, brought to you by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 provides streamlined access to behavioral and mental health services, as well as crisis resources for Michigan's Frontline 5 workers and their families. This includes all professional, part-time, and volunteer firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, corrections officers, and 911 dispatchers in Michigan and their immediate family members. First responders and mental health experts collaboratively created FST5 to provide 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. Need help now? If you are a frontline worker in Michigan or an immediate family member experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, finances, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org for more information. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of the hosts of the Minds on the Frontline podcast, and I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, who is also a professional firefighter and paramedic. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the Frontline Strong Together 5 program, a board member of the Michigan Crisis Response Association, and the former chair of the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union Behavioral Health Committee. Mike has training and experience with frontline worker mental and behavioral health. On the other hand, I do not. My role is to produce the show, whereas Mike is our resident subject matter expert. Together, we hope to inform, educate, and entertain frontline workers, their families, and the public regarding the realities of frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. In this episode, we sit down with Annabelle Sharp, who shares her deeply personal journey of navigating the grief that followed her father's suicide in 2016. As a firefighter and paramedic, Annabelle has faced loss both personally and professionally, but her father's tragic passing profoundly shaped her life. To cope with the overwhelming grief, Annabelle turned to music, using singing and songwriting as a lifeline to express her deepest emotions and find healing. Her latest album, Beyond Bishop, stands as a heartfelt tribute to her father and all loved ones lost too soon, embodying the pain and hope she's experienced along the way. During this episode, Annabelle walks us through how music became a crucial outlet for her emotions, offering a way to process her most difficult feelings. She also shares valuable insights for frontline leaders on how they can better support the mental and behavioral health of their crews, drawing from her own experiences and the lessons that she has learned. Annabelle's story isn't just one of loss. It is a testament to resilience, hope, and the incredible power of music to heal even the deepest wounds. This conversation is both inspiring and practical, offering advice for anyone grappling with similar struggles. Through Annabelle's story, we explore the rhythms of resilience and the healing that can emerge from the darkest times. You can find Annabelle's latest album, Beyond Bishop, wherever you get your music or on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Check out the episode description for details. And stay tuned at the end of the show for her song, Snow, which beautifully embodies the emotions and themes we discuss in this episode. And don't forget to connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media platforms, and stay updated on our latest episodes and content. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hi, Annabelle.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Good.
We're doing good. You're here. We're happy to have you here.
Nobody came off shift. We're all fresh-faced and ready to talk.
Yes.
There
Amazing.
we go.
Well, Annabelle, we already had the introduction. Everybody knows why you're here. But why don't you give the overview of who you are, what you do, and where you do it?
All right. My name's Annabelle Sharp. I'm 21 years old. I'm from the Pinckney area. Grew up around there. I got into EMS and fire in my senior year of high school. Took EMT my senior year, then went and doubled up on Medic and Fire Academy. Worked full-time at Livingston County EMS and also on call at Hamburg Township as a firefighter. I've been with West Bloomfield Fire Department as a full-time fire medic for about a year and a half now. Outside of my professional endeavors, I like to write songs. I play the guitar and the bass, and I sing, and that takes up most of my time outside of work.
So that's all you do. Got it. That's good though. That's awesome that you got that wide range of experience, and you got.
She's a motivated kid.
Yeah, at 21 years old.
Yep, 21, freshly in December.
Yes.
And so you're one of the first generation to come out of high school where there was a big push to get you guys trained at least to EMT and Fire 1 or Fire 1 and 2. So you had this huge step ahead of everybody when it comes to getting into a career. So you were able to get a full-time job, career, get set up before you were 21, which is great.
Absolutely, and I was so grateful for the opportunity. And if I had known that I'd wanted to pursue this career path a little bit earlier on, I could have even taken Fire Academy my junior year and come out with both certificates. So I think it's a really cool thing that we're giving kids that opportunity to jump into the workforce and do something that they like doing.
Right on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool to see it actually happen because I remember when it started and I was going to high schools and helping out with stuff, and it's like, oh, well, it worked. We're doing
Here
it now.
I am.
Look at that.
Look, product of what you did, right?
Well,
here.
I wasn't in her area.
Oh,
You don't want those kids.
gotcha.
Okay, so you're also here to talk about something pretty specific and nuanced, right? So you have a very specific viewpoint that a lot of people don't really get. You are the daughter of a suicide victim.
Yes, that's correct.
Somebody who completed suicide, I think, is probably the more
Yes,
agreeable
that's
term
more
these
the-
days.
Yes.
So, yeah, you have a very nuanced perspective that we wanted to borrow today. And your strength and your charisma and everything else that comes with it is such a good ambassador to talk about this stuff. Because it's not about sensationalizing it in a way of like, oh, isn't this story interesting? It's like, no, this is going to be a thought in other first responders' brains. And we need to fill their world with other perspectives so they understand how their family couldn't be impacted. And all the other stuff that goes with it. So with no further ado, let's just have you tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad, Garrett Sharp Sr., was a really good man. He was an outdoorsman, a family man, loved his wife and kids, and would do anything for a friend or even a stranger at that. That being said, he definitely had some internal battles that he had been fighting for I don't know how long, but it kind of came up to a head just a couple of months prior to his passing. I know he struggled with alcoholism, other addictions, and depression. And it really came to a point when it was my first ever band concert. I was playing at a pub in Pinckney. And my dad and my mom were very supportive of all my musical endeavors all throughout growing up. And he missed it due to those vices. And when I came home, he sat me down. First time I'd ever seen him cry. And he said, I'm going to go away for a couple of weeks. I'm going to try to get better. And he did. He went to rehab for a couple weeks. It might have been almost a month. But when he came back, things seemed like they were on an upswing. And I think everybody in my family felt that. But school was just starting to get out. We went camping in the Brighton Rec area at Bishop Lake Campground. Nothing abnormal for us. It's just what we did in the summers growing up as a family. I remember my mom was cooking dinner at the campsite over the fire, and I was in a nearby field playing goggle ball with some friends and other kids I'd met at the campground. I watched my dad take off on my sister's bike into the woods on the trail that led to the beach, which also not an abnormal thing. It was a really standard day, a really good day actually, but little did I know that that would be the last time I would ever see my father. Once my family and I realized that he was actually missing and not just going for a bike ride, search party began. The local authorities got involved, and they searched through the night, and it was to my understanding that they found him sometime in the morning in the woods off the trail where he had completed suicide via cutting himself. Okay. And it was a really tragic ending to a really, really good man. But it's the perfect example of even if you have the perfect life, you know, the family, the job, the hobbies, the money to do as you please, you can still be fighting things on the inside and do a very good job of not letting that show.
Did you have any inklings? Because he obviously discussed maybe some demons he struggled with, which is why we had to go away. And it sounds like he went to maybe rehab or got some help.
Yes, he went to rehab.
Cool. And he got cleaned up. And
he did, and
well.
he did get cleaned up, and he was sober when he passed. his toxicology report was clean.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that he's not struggling, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Did you see any signs of like a deep depression or any signs that he was struggling?
I didn't know that he had struggled with depression until after his passing, a couple years after, when I just started looking into things. You know, you grow up, you're a curious kid.
Sure.
But I knew that he had struggled with alcohol dependency. Both my parents did at certain points, and they would ebb and flow to like who was struggling more. And it was a hard thing to see, you know. It was two people that loved each other very dearly, and when one was doing well, the other wasn't, but they both were just trying so hard to get to that common ground. So I definitely I saw that growing up. I think my siblings saw that as well. There were signs that there were trouble in the waters, but what happened was completely unprecedented. None of us had seen that coming.
And unfortunately, that's pretty common. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where you talk to people on the street, you meet people every day, but you really have no idea what's going on in their world. To the point you lived in the same house, you were around them all the time.
Yeah.
You never saw a thing. And some people are just very good at hiding it. A lot of times afterwards, people are, you know, there's a lot of guilt there, like, what did I miss? Or what didn't I see? And those are common kind of after the fact. After it happened, can you talk about some of the things that you went through after he completed suicide?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really young at the time. Like, I think I was 12, turning 13.
But that's like young, but at the same time, your brain is just turning on to realizing what the world is and the ramification of stuff. So the expectations of what you can comprehend is higher, right? So
absolutely.
I want to give you some credit as to you had to feel this. You were 12, 13.
I was,
right?
absolutely. Just because there are certain things I don't remember just because I was so young, and from talking to like therapists growing up, that seems to be a pretty normal thing to kind of have these little gaps where you don't remember certain things. But the one thing I can really say that is I don't ever really remember being angry. I was obviously upset and sad, and, you know, grief is such a fluid thing and you bounce between all those things, but I don't think anger is something that I ever felt towards my dad afterwards. And that is something that actually drove me and certain family members apart, because they would look at me and say, Annabelle, you were his best friend, two peas in a pod. How could you not be more upset about this? Why don't you care more? And in my mind, obviously, for somebody to make the choice to complete suicide, that is such a heavy burden and a heavy load. And the way that I tried to view it then, and I still try to view it now, just for my own sake, is that this was a man that loved his family, was a happy man that would do anything for them. And if for some reason he felt that that was the thing that he needed to do to make things better, granted, obviously, looking back, that it wasn't. But, you know, he had some things going on. There was a mental illness there. And if that was what he thought that he needed to do for his family to be better off,
You find it hard to be angry at that, rather than probably sadder that he was going through it and he felt that was his own option.
Right. I just wish I could have been there for him. Right. Because, you know, we were two peas in a pod. I grew up like writing rhymes with him, going on truck rides, all of those things that, you know, a father and daughter do. But something about him is that I was his daughter, and, you know, he was my parent, but also he treated me with the respect that he would a friend. Mm-hmm. So I also felt like I was his friend. So that was a really difficult and interesting thing to navigate, because, you know, I'm losing my father and all these things that are going to, you know, supposed to happen in the future, like, you know, walk me down the aisle, meet my grandchildren, but also like I'm losing a friend. So
yeah, and you almost probably feel a little bit of responsibility because you have that added layer of friendship where we always look out for each other. And it's not like anybody tells you have to. You just do. We just feel it as humans of like, I'm supposed to look after that person, right?
Right.
So, you know, Mike sees a lot of people in these situations and deals with a lot of family members that have been in your situation. And then he's been on the other side where he's helped people stop going down that road. When we say people feel guilt, is that kind of some of it? Is they almost feel like they had a responsibility they didn't follow through with?
I think that's a lot of the time is one of the most common things that we hear from people is, did I miss something? Mm-hmm. Or if maybe I had this conversation, this wouldn't have happened. Or if I picked up the phone when he called that day, maybe he would still be here today. in the reality of it, and it's not just kind of me talking, it's when you talk to the experts and the people who do this way more extensively than we do, they had already made up their mind. They knew what they were going to do. Picking up that phone call may not necessarily have stopped it, or picking up on the little nuance that, that may not have even been there, but everybody thinks they could have stopped it. And in all reality is, once the person has made that decision and they're at peace with that decision, there is no stopping it. You may be able to, but really once their mind is made up and you're at that point, in the reality of it is, it may not make a difference, but everybody feels like they could have made the difference.
Yeah, once the plan's there and they're already down that road, they're so far gone where unless you cross paths with them, it's really hard to stop them.
There's been times where there's trauma clinicians who are on the phone with these people, and that's what they do in their life. They've got a doctorate in trauma and how to speak to people, and people will still complete suicide.
Right.
And that's where you look at it, and really when you're in that mindset where you've made that decision and you're at peace with it, you're not really thinking clearly either. You're we talked about it in another episode, you're kind of in this fog of, you only see what's right in front of you. You don't see what's down the road. And that's where a lot of the times, even if you're talking to them, they still will complete it because they don't see that long-term.
You're not convincing them.
No.
Right.
No.
And I think sometimes people in those situations are almost at peace where you're not going to see it coming because they feel so okay with the decision that they're like, oh, I have a solution in their mind. I'm not saying they've solved any real problems, but they've at least resolved I got a process. I got to handle this.
Yeah, they feel it's the best thing to do. Like they've come to terms in their mind that this is what they should do and that it's the right thing, it's so tragic because this is a conversation that's not talked about enough in all waves of life, first responders, whatever other job you have, personal lives. Suicide has a rippling effect throughout the community. If you don't have a family member that's completed suicide, somebody that's completed suicide, or somebody within your community that's completed suicide. And it affects all of us, which is why it's really surprising that we're not willing to have more of these open conversations to try to steer people away from that and encourage them to know that there are other things out there to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And one of the things to maybe keep us away from going down that line is having really good coping mechanisms, right? Healthy habits and skills. Now, knowing you, since I've met you, and you're still young, right? I can't wait till you're old.
Still a young gal.
I'd love to say when she's older, she's still not going to be fit and awesome, but she's probably going to be putting the work in the whole time. So your fitness has always been a thing for you. You take it very seriously at work. And like me, we use it as coping mechanisms, right? Not only just coping, but it's a good, healthy thing to do. It
Absolutely.
keeps me strong, but it also relieves tension. It does all the good things too. Art is also something people use, and you have used art your whole life as well, and specifically music. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today is grief, which we've kind of hit on where yours comes from. And even though having such a traumatic thing happen in your life, you're a very positive person. So if anybody's watching, this chick's just put on a smile. No, this is her. She's actually in low power mode right now, I would say.
I am. I'm very relaxed right now. Very chill. It's probably because I had a full night of sleep.
Right. That's what it is. So we do want to talk about the other side of these things, which is your art and music and how you've dealt with grief. And it's culminated into an album now. We get so many people that contact FST5 in a logistical way, like, hey, have you thought about these topics or that topics getting on the show, or people just talking about it. One of the biggest ones is music. And so many people, even if they're not musicians, use music as a way to either be happy, sad, grief, or work through their emotions. It's such a great way to get in tune with your parasympathetic system and just kind of let things kind of go in and out. So let's talk about your music. How has your music played a role in coping with your grief?
I think music has played probably the largest role in coping with my grief because, just after his passing, I really just relied on sports and the structure of this, the education system to hold me up, and it worked well for a while. And I was still playing, I was still writing things, but the songs I was writing were about being from like a little podunk town and doing fun stuff with my friends, or, you know, high school.
In total relation to a kid your age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
happy
perfect.
stuff.
Right.
How
Happy
awesome.
stuff.
She doesn't have sad songs because everything's awesome.
Yes.
Right. And then, you know, like, you know, high school, heartbreak, all of those things.
Yeah.
But, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
certain things to help you cope with grief are only going to work for so long. Right. And I realized that probably about like my junior and senior year of high school. That's when things started taking a little bit of a shift for the worse. I mean, I was navigating these things in life, like, you know, breakups, you know, rocky friendships, just other major life events. And every time I would come home and lay in my bed, I would think, man, like I think my dad would have had the answer to this. And I was in that loop for years. And I still find myself getting stuck in that loop. Like, man, like if he was here, like he would have this answer. This wouldn't be so hard. I would know what to do. And I finally started shifting my music towards voicing those thoughts about how I do miss him a lot. And the first song I ever wrote about my dad was called Snow. I'd actually just gotten back from the cemetery from visiting him because where he rests is just about a mile from my house. And I was sitting in my car. I was letting the last song finish up. And the next song that came on was actually Snow by Zach Bryan. And in a total movie miraculous way, it started snowing. And I just immediately bawled. And I just felt so compelled to write this song. And I went inside and I wrote Snow in one fell swoop. And ever since then, I've been much more comfortable writing about my dad and the feelings I have about him. And there are some songs that are more confused than others. There are some that really tap back to when I was a little kid and just really, really missing my daddy. But music has been huge. And I've continued to write those songs. And I think it's important because, like what we had talked about earlier, how we're all affected by suicide in one way, shape, or form. I like being able to share my story. And it's been incredible, the people that have reached out to me to share similar stories, like people I knew in high school or growing up that I knew them, but I didn't know what was going on behind closed doors. And also, you know, we all lose family members too. I think my music is something that can help guide you through certain feelings as well, because, you know, whether you lose a family member from suicide, cancer, a tragic accident, you're losing a family member nonetheless. And those tragedies will affect you the way they affect you. And I think it's important that we look to others and, you know, music to help us cope and figure out, just we need to like bond as a community. So I'm happy that music was able to do that for me, but I'm even happier that maybe my music has been able to do that for others.
We've listened to the songs and absolutely, I mean, you can feel the emotion that's in there. And it, when we talk about good coping skills, it blows my mind how good it is, because it's one of those things, I'm sure at the time you really didn't know how to talk about this stuff, but it was easy to you felt it was easier to put it down. And then, you know, a lot of people like to journal stuff after.
Yeah.
You know, they may not know how to talk about it, but they'll journal it.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me kind of that. You feel this stuff, it comes out, you put it on paper, but you took it a step further and then put it to a song, which is now being able to help other people talk about it. Like you said, you know, people heard your music and went, yeah, I had this happen to me. That may have been the first time they ever told somebody that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the fact that you were able to take those steps and follow it as far as you did is awesome. And the message with it is phenomenal. And I think it's really going to open up a lot of people to have those conversations and be okay with talking about it.
Yeah, it's a great way to just spark the conversation. I mean, a song's a good way to get a story through, right? Because they'll listen to a whole song, they might not listen to a whole story, and know that there's like entranced by it in a way.
Like Mike, you were saying, you know, it's maybe I hadn't always been able to talk about it. Like I've always been able to talk about it, but in a very like factual manner. Like, oh, you know,
I can't imagine you not talking. You're like
I know,
me.
right?
Can you imagine me and her working together? No,
Who would get a word in?
We have to roll the windows down in the ambulance so there's enough oxygen to share.
Right. Oh gosh, where was I?
You're having a tough time talking about it. You never had a tough time expressing it.
Very factual.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So I would always talk about his passing and his story in a very factual manner. Like, you know, This is where it happened. This is what happened. This is the spiral that my family went into after, but we're good now. And I left all of the emotion out of it. But you know me. I'm a very emotional person, like very, very in touch with my feelings. I've got big feelings. So it was really nice to finally be able to get those out, because I think they were just eating away at me for years, not having been able to find a way to express them. And now I have that, and I always feel better, like playing them, listening to them. I think music is like the international language. I think it's connected us all throughout the community after, like, I mean, this is a completely like other astronomical end of the spectrum, but like, after 9/11, there were all of these songs about, like patriotism and coming together and being one as Americans. And like, we bonded over those things. Like Toby Keith, we'll put a boot in your butt. It's the American way. And it was something small that we were able to like get back on the same ground with and then go forward as one. So I think it's important to listen to music, and it doesn't always have to be sad. It can be happy, just whatever you're in the mood for. I think it releases all the happy, feel good, like, hormones that we need to like go forward and live a fruitful life.
Well, yeah, maybe not always happy. Maybe it allows you to just express your emotions or allow the outlet for that. Because again, let's quote her. Crystal, we had on here before, talking about the importance of parasympathetic response from deep breathing. And if you hold your emotions in, they're just going to swirl around out there till you express themselves. And you could work out, you could therapy, you could have parasympathetic release breathing stuff, or some people listen to music. Yeah,
like my boyfriend, he always makes fun of me. He's like, you're always listening to these sad songs, and you're writing these sad songs. Like, I don't know how that helps you feel better. And for me, it's like, I'm putting it out there. Like, right. I now have another outlet that can hold part of that load, because it's a heavy load. The things we feel and the things we go through as people and humans, we're all having that human experience, right? It's a heavy load. And I think it's important that we realize that it's not a burden to maybe ask other people or reach out to other people or find these other outlets that can help carry that load. And for me, music is that load. Like, my album Beyond Bishop is kind of like a time capsule of that period of me kind of coming out of my shell, finally singing instead of talking about these things. And it goes to show that my father's suicide is a huge part of my life, and it has definitely shaped the person that I've become today. But it's also not going to be the defining factor of what I do and how I do it. And it's a nice little time capsule that I can go back to and reach to and listen to whenever I need that, but also a reminder that there is things beyond, hence the title, like Beyond Bishop.
Awesome. I love that title too.
Yeah.
So I got two more questions for you. So as the daughter of someone who has completed suicide, what words of support can you share with those that are struggling with the thoughts of suicidal ideation or other similar intrusive thoughts?
It's a tough topic because it is so different for everybody. Like, my grieving process is going to be different from yours, and how I handle things is going to be different from yours. But I think the overarching theme is that we need to talk about it. It doesn't mean that you have to go like straight to a therapist and start spilling your guts, because that's a really hard thing to do. And I'll be really honest right now. Like, I just started going to therapy a month ago. I have never gone over the past 8 years, and I wish I would have, but it takes a lot of time to build up the courage to do that, because it's so hard. But you don't always have to start there, because that can be a very scary thing to do. You can reach out to a family member, talk to a friend. If you're in, religious or involved with church, talk to somebody within your religious community. I think it's just important to talk, and you don't always have to start talking about the really heavy stuff, right? It's just important that we reach out to each other. Hey, like, how are you doing? Like, you would totally be surprised just being like a nice person and, reaching out to those people around you just to see how they're doing, because they might not be able to know how to do that. But if you're that person that is having those ideations and those intrusive thoughts, I can tell you as a daughter of somebody who's completed suicide that I miss my dad every day. There is not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And I think about all the things that I wish I could be doing with him often, and think about the things that I wish he is seeing wherever he's at. And I would urge you that, if you have children, I would like think about your children and their years going forward, and how important it is for them to have you in their life, because they will be looking to you for your guidance. And if you don't have children, think about your wife. If you don't have a wife, think about your friends, think about your family members. There is somebody that's in your corner, and because nobody goes through life alone. So I think it's important that you find those people, and it's a hard step, very hard step. I don't want to understate that at all, but it's important that you go and you talk to them. That's the first step.
That's huge advice. Just talking to anybody. I like how she said talk to anybody. Just
Anybody.
start talking.
Anybody.
Yeah, or just start talking to yourself. I talk to myself in the car all the time.
Yeah.
I have conversations with my dad in the car all the time. I if I'm having a hard time like processing my emotions, like in a, maybe like a romantic relationship, or even just like something that I like want to tell my mom that's a little bit harder to discuss, practice the conversation just out loud by yourself. It'll make you so much more comfortable. And if you're starting to take that first step to reach out to somebody because you're having those intrusive thoughts or suicidal ideations, practice just talking out loud. It might help you become more comfortable with doing so to other people.
Right, and don't feel bad not asking for, like you said, professional help. People get there at their own speed. Know it's available.
It's always available. There are so many resources out there.
You let you off the hook a little bit. It's not like you've been an adult for 8 years dealing with trauma.
Right.
You started out as a child with trauma, became an adult, and then said, okay, I see where this fits in my life.
There's a lot of adults who won't do that.
Oh, I was stubborn. My mom,
sure.
Yes.
Dude,
Same.
She tried getting me to go when I was young, and I was like, no.
Right.
Absolutely not.
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good. I've got this myself. Whatever.
Right.
But I'm actually really grateful that she did, because it made the process of finding a therapist very easy, because I already had that connection established, which is also a really good piece of advice. Like, if you feel that you're doing well and life is going the way that it's supposed to be going, that's amazing. I would still advise you to start those relationships early, whether it's with a therapist or other people, because you have no idea when you might need it. And it's awesome to have that resource set in stone to be able to get that ball rolling.
It's just like physical therapy. I like knowing where I'm going to go the next time I fall, because it's going to be easy just to have it all laid out.
Yeah, it's for me, I think of it as a safety net. When everything's going good and you're walking the line and everything's going good, cool, right? But the second you get knocked off that line, if you don't have that net, you're going to fall, and you're going to fall hard. And it's having that network of people, like you talked about. It's not just, I don't think it's just one thing. It's not just you have your therapist or you just have this person you talk to. It's that network of people, that because each of them give you something different. You got to
have community.
Yes.
Yeah.
The therapist
so
gives you one thing. You're talking to your friends gives you another. Talking to a family member gives you something different. And each individually may help, but when you put them all together, it's like putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
They work together to make that thing better.
Yeah, they maintain you.
Yes.
Right? Each of them individually give you the outlet to be you. You
And
didn't have
lift you
those
back
outlets,
up.
or were you expressing it? You're not expressing anything.
Yeah.
Right?
And they lift you right back up to where you need to be.
Where you need need to be.
Where you need to
where
be.
Where you are best.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so knowing how hard that can be on families, the whole thing from every angle, we always like to get advice for people that are leaders and people that have like their hands on the dial of making change at their agency, whether it's a fire department, police department, sheriff's, correction, you get it. So what advice do you have for the frontline leaders to support the behavioral and mental health of frontline personnel?
Everybody on your crew is a leader in some way, shape, or form. Even if you're like a probationary, you still like do play a role, and people might lean on you in certain moments. So I think at the crew level, it's important that we're just reaching out to each other. Like we talked about earlier, things seem fine, still reach out to each other, have those conversations. We don't always need to talk about the next fire or the next medical call. It's important that we have those personal relationships established. Now, moving up the chain of command, maybe all the way up to your administration or your chiefs, I think it's important that you let your crews know that you are a resource and that you are wanting and willing to help whenever you can. But I also think it's even more important that you go forward and put the effort into showing that you actually will follow through with doing that, and making it known that these resources are available, or like checking in with your crews. I think, and granted, I'm a child in the fire service, even more so than I'm a child in the world. I've only been doing this for like 2.5 years, so maybe take it with a grain of salt, but I feel like there's an incredible dissonance between our higher ranking officers and chiefs to our people on the line. And I think that gap really needs to be closed, because, at one point you were also a firefighter, And I think it's important that we remember that is where we came from and remember some of the struggles that those people on the line might be going through. So I think it's important, just as, high ranking officers and chiefs and actual leaders of the department, to really follow through with that, because it's good that you say that you're going to do those things. It's even more important that you show your crew how willing you are to do those things.
It's probably different everywhere, right?
It's different everywhere.
For us, it's got a certain personality of how we expect to see you understand.
Right.
And I'm sure at Dearborn, it's totally different. You go down to Tennessee, whatever department in Nashville, I'm sure it's different.
Right.
But I think you're right of like, you got to get the tone from your personnel of, what do I got to do to show you I care?
Right.
And then to make that commitment and follow through.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, we're a department and they might be our bosses, but we're still a community. Like, I want to be there for my chief the same way that I want him to be there for me if stuff happens to hit the fan.
It's family. It's another, it's your third family.
It's a family. And I think people in the fire service have gotten like tired of the family mantra, but like, it's so true. I go to work and that's my second family. Those are my brothers and sisters. I pick up overtime. I see them most weeks more than I do my own family.
Right.
It's important that we have those relationships and we continue to strive to support them. And I'm a pipeman, so I have a long ways in my career before I'll start making those changes at the administrative level. I do think there are a lot of, places where we can jump in and start filling that gap. I know for like West Bloomfield, we've got the Give 55 program, which I think is super cool. And I think that's a great step in the right direction as well. And maybe just encouraging other departments or other chiefs and leaders that you might know within your chiefly circle to do those things are also a great step as well if you're looking for a place to start and don't know where.
Couldn't agree more. I think what we're talking about is humility.
What did Brandon Evans say? He was talking about this guy. He talked to hundreds of chiefs all over the world, and he did a study. And the number one thing is we're human.
We are. We're all having a
human. So go do the human thing.
Experience.
Right. So just treat it like human to human. Cut it out with the whole paramilitary. Like at some points, it's like, what up?
You
know what I mean?
It's important to have structure,
to the human section.
but it's also important to have those friendships. Like we have a captain that
not just friendships, just
friendships in general.
As humans.
Yeah, like we have a captain who comes down to the stations all the time, and he talks about training and like what we're supposed to be doing and like that structure that is incredibly important in a fire department, type of organization. But then also we talk about his kids and what they're doing and what he's up to with his wife. So it's an important balance.
Connect.
It's important.
And the other thing about being your age is you get all these other life experiences right in front of your eyes. So you can see the things
wonderful.
You want to do, you don't want to do. You're seeing the experiments play out in real time, and you got your whole life ahead of you. So
right.
That was one of the biggest benefits when I got hired. It's like, all these old guys around me can teach me the way, not by doing everything they do, but to show me what happens when they do that.
Right? Like my dad might not be with me right now, but when I go to work tomorrow, I'm going to have 4 dads that I can ask questions to and help me figure out and navigate this world. I'm going to maybe listen to half of them, and then they're going to start talking about stocks or retirement finances, things I don't completely understand yet.
Right.
And then I'll tune out, but I know that when I go to work, I'm going to have, I know. I put into my retirement every month. I put into 2 of them. Yeah. But
physical, financial, emotional. You got to have all 3.
I was like you. I got hired when I was 21, and I came into the fire service.
Fellow youngin'.
Yes, I came into the fire service very young. And I don't know if you had the same thing, but I came in thinking I knew how the world worked, and I was okay. I came in, and like you said, working with 40, 50-year-olds, I learned to really grow up in the fire service.
Yeah.
They taught me how to be an adult, basically. Yeah. And
they were not pulling punches like your parents were.
No. It was
your parents showed like how much they like you by not telling you the truth about the world at some point.
Right.
Yes. They were very blunt on things, and they held you accountable and those types of things. And I love that portion of it. Right? They weren't very touchy-feely.
No, you do this?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why?
Exactly. And that's where I kind of get back to the humility part of this is when you do get to those spots, you do have people who are younger coming in here, right? And that's where I think we can make a change is being human. Take the bugles off for a minute.
Yeah.
And you're Mike and Jeff having a conversation. I never got that when I first got hired. And that's where I think we need to really kind of change things. Is it's okay to be a higher ranking person, but at some point you got to realize before you were a higher ranking person, you were just a person.
You're always just a person.
You're always just a person. You were on the pipe at one point.
That's what I mean. But you were a human being first.
Exactly.
Take care of everyone as if they were a human being, not your employee.
Right.
You know, and I think that's huge. That's my little take on it.
Agreed. I think we could all agree on that.
You know.
So my last question.
Yes.
Where can people find and support your music?
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet. If you look up Annabelle Sharp, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm even on the TikTok. If you look my name up on like streaming services, I'm on Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, Bandcamp, Amazon, Pandora, pretty much anywhere that you stream on, I'm most likely there. But if you don't have any of those streaming services, I'm also on YouTube. I have a music video up as well. I update people mostly on my social media platforms to let them know about, future music endeavors and future recording endeavors. But I'm really excited to say that I am heading down to Nashville in the middle of July to record 4 more songs. And shocker, one of them is about my dad.
Weird.
But I know, weird, right?
Didn't see that one coming.
Didn't see that one coming.
I'm surprised it's only one.
Yeah.
I know, right? I know. I've spanned it out a little bit.
Well, that's the nice thing about
Butterfly.
writing an album. You probably you encapsulate it. Like, those are my feelings. I've expressed that.
I've expressed most of them.
And you're getting older. We're all getting older, but as you mature rapidly into more of an adulthood, because your prefrontal cortex isn't even hardened yet.
I know.
Isn't that crazy? So how many more albums are in that thing?
Yeah.
So what about, are you going to play live anywhere locally?
I'm working on it. I'm trying. I was really behind on the 8 ball for setting stuff up this summer just because I got wrapped up with work and family stuff.
Happens.
Life, right?
Yeah.
But I will definitely be updating people about live appearances, and then also there are open mics everywhere. So I tend to update people on my social media whenever I'm going to be doing those just a couple days prior.
Right on. We'll throw some links in the thing.
And the video on YouTube. Name of the song so people can look it up.
Snow. It is Snow by Annabelle Sharp. You'll see this face in a purpley hue, black and white. Really well done by a guy named Brian Sheehan. A great videographer. He's in the area. And I'm wearing a big old cowboy hat.
You are wearing
Kinda
a big
hard
old
to,
cowboy hat. Yeah.
Hard to miss.
And shout out to Brent, your manager.
Shout out to Brent Satterley, dude. Quick side note,
almost forgot him.
No, I can never
I'm
forget
not
him.
saying it.
Just didn't get a chance to bring him up.
He's
no,
not forgettable.
He is dude. What a great guy, right? Music is something I've always wanted to do, but kind of especially after my dad passed, I never thought that I would get around to do it because one of my biggest supporters wasn't there to push me anymore, but showed up one day at the fire station on probation. They wanted me to bring my guitar. They were hoping that I would suck so they could make fun of me for it, but apparently I must have left an impression because Brent just over the next, course of the next couple months just was asking me about music and updates and if I was going to be recording stuff. And once I finally brought him a demo with some mics that I had recorded with my MacBook in GarageBand, he's like, this is cool, but you should go to a studio. And if you don't want my help, tell me to buzz off. But if you want a hand, I really want to help see this through. And he's helped see it through, got me in contact with the studio with my video, and now we're going to Nashville. So
awesome.
Cool little passion project, ran full circle.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Well, I'm glad it's all working out well for you, and we thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me this platform. I really do appreciate it. I think it's
Absolutely.
important that we talk about this stuff.
First snow fell this year, and I thought about how you ain't here, but you're a mile down the road and 6 feet below. The snow came down quick and then settled down thick, and I think of how we laid you there alone. And I remember when you tucked me in to sleep at night when I was a kid. And now it's my job to make sure you're warm. So let me call the rest of the kids. Mom wants us all here for this. And let's go pick out the pines pines, fake blue roses, yellow ribbons, fine, and lay it over where you lie. A blanket from the weather above. It's the least we could do for a good man that got lost. Everyone says you're looking down, but I can't stop thinking how we put you in the ground when you should be with your kids, with your wife and with your friends. Your presence is missed all around. 7 years later, still the talk of the town. Your friends say I'm just like you, and my new friends wish they could have met you too. And it's hard to carry your legacy now when it's hard to see little G and V so down. I wish they could have known you as long as I did, and so did too. So let me call the rest of the kids. Mom wants us all here for this. And let's go pick out the pines, fake blue roses, yellow ribbons, fine, and lay it over where you lie. A blanket from the weather above. It's the least we could do for a good man that got lost. The only thing worse than death is being forgotten. Please know I think about you often. I hope you hear my songs, whether it's through the clouds or a coffin.